Good evening. It's Kirsten and it is Tuesday, what are we on, the 16th of August at 8 o'clock UK time, and it's another brew and a blether. I know this is about I haven't done an actual brew and a blether face to face with you for a while, but there's so many lovely things that I want to make. So, and it's always fun to share with you. And I have just discovered, and for those of you who join me regularly, you'll know that sometimes technical gremlins do plague me. But I have now found, I think, a way of having the camera the right way round, which has to do with auto rotate rather than just having it in one mode. So tell me if this is the right way round and if it looks okay. Here are my hands. So is that quite a good sort of position and orientation? Would be good to know. And also, I have moved the stand, this amazing super stand that is holding my phone whilst I am making. I've moved it to my left hand side. Now, why I didn't think of doing this before, because I am in fact right-handed, and therefore having the stand on the right hand side just meant it was in the way of everything, because everything that I need is on the right hand side, but now it's on the left. So clever. Finally, I get the memo. So now I've been doing lots and lots of little flower hatted creatures, mostly ducks, it must be said. But I thought, because it's been a while since I made a penguin, I think, and I haven't made a penguin wearing a flower hat yet. So tonight I thought I would make a penguin with a flower hat. They've been getting a bit antsy, a bit fed up because they've not been featuring much recently. So I'll get through as much as I can. It's also a chance for me to show you how I make the flowers, because it's actually more intricate than perhaps you would think. But anyway, isn't that always the way? So I'm going to make a start. I hope you're all well and that you have been managing to stay cool. It's certainly been rather warm. It's been a gorgeous summer, let's be honest. I mean, yeah, sometimes when I see the headlines sort of talking about, it's going to be, it's meltdown, hottest day, it's just a lovely summer that we're having. So as long as we're sensible, we can just enjoy it, because, before long it's going to be raining and cold again. And then we'll be like, oh, do you remember when it was so warm? And wouldn't it be nice if we could just have it warm again? So anyway, I hope you are all enjoying the summer. And managing to get outside and enjoy the sort of fresh air, but just enjoy the sunshine. It's definitely worth it. Right. Gosh, I took things a little bit easy last week. You might have noticed that I was not as much in evidence as I normally am last week. I was relaxing a bit, actually, after basking, one could say, after the amazing charity raffle and how much we managed to raise for so many worthwhile causes. I mean, really, I was just so chuffed, so chuffed. So thank you so much again to everybody who took part. And yes, I think there's just two hedgehog rescues I'm waiting to hear with their bank details for, but otherwise last week was a week of admin and sorting out all the payments, and I felt very much like Father Christmas, giving out all these £60 donations. So, it's definitely something I'm going to do more of. When I, doing fundraising directly for small charities and rescues that are just run out of the garage, these are the people who really appreciate, even if it's just a small amount, a modest amount, that it really makes a big difference. Whereas some of the bigger charities, the more established charities that have so many overheads, then, £60 is it's just a drop in the ocean. It's basically their morning coffee run. So it's good if I can keep fundraising for those people on the ground, then that's what I would very much like to do. So yes, and then what else has been happening? Gosh, yeah, I've been sort of exploring knitting. Now, I've always sort of done bits and pieces of knitting, but I recently mislaid my favourite scarf, which is just a skinny scarf in these gorgeous sort of peacock teal blue colours, and I discovered, I didn't know it at the time, but it was made with ladder yarn. which, was just a lovely finish. Now, I started thinking, oh, can I make myself a new one? So I just started looking around. Now, this is because Rosina, my friend Rosie, makes the most amazing frilled scarves, and she very kindly gave me one recently. I was just like, wow, actually, there's a lot to be said for knitting, for crocheting, for just these yarning crafts, which just is something which I have been able to do up to, to an extent, like scarves. I can just about make scarves. But beyond that, haven't really looked into it. So I've started looking into it, and it's just fascinating. So yes, and I've ordered some more embroidery thread because I'm going to be giving more knitting to the creatures, for the creatures to make. But I might actually try experimenting with lots of different stitches, and they'll become very clever. These mice and things, they'll be so full of themselves that they can make basket weave stitch and lacy stitch, and it's good fun. It's good fun, and it's always good to keep yourself on your toes and feel that you're learning new skills. It keeps your brain sharper, makes the time go more slowly, and as you will know, those of you who join me regularly, it's a bit of a regular plea of mine, is just how quickly the time is passing these days. It's really quite something. Anyway, as I am blethering away, that's me just made the body of the penguin. Actually, I'm going to move this up just a fraction so he's more central. I think that's better. Excellent. And for whatever reason, I can see the screen better. And if anybody is making comments, I don't know whether anybody is. Don't think so yet. But do feel free to chime in, because it's much easier for me to read them in this position than it was before. And that's, again, the joys of auto-rotate, which I always have my phone fixed in portrait mode. I don't know why. I just don't like my phone moving around, or but obviously when I'm actually recording this in landscape, then it makes sense for the phone to be in landscape as well. So I've learned something today. It dawned on me at the end of the last Brew and a Blether, and so this is the first time I've been able to check it out. So right, I have just, having made the body, and I'll let him rest because it is warm in here. Even though I have air conditioning, I don't have it on all the time, and I try and keep the temperature around about 20 degrees, 19, 20 degrees, because that's the ideal, the optimal working temperature for polymer clay, for me anyway. It might be, if it gets too hot, then it just becomes so soft and it just becomes unworkable. Right, I'm just going to roll this through. This is for the wings. So I'm just rolling this through the pasta machine. And actually, I'm not sure whether to give him something to hold. Maybe I will. Let's see. So I'm just going to cut out his wings. This is just a brilliant oval cutter that I have, and that actually I use for the inside of bunny ears as well. That's my my cutter for those. There are some cutters I would just be completely lost with, and that's certainly one of them. Not been able to find another. Well, I'm sure I could find another one if it ever goes completely walkabouts, but hasn't quite so far yet. Right, so what I will do now is just make his tummy. And I will put his tummy on. Now, this is where white and black, not a very good colour. Well, obviously white and black look very good together, but they also blend horribly. They bleed into each other very much. So a lot of my time when I'm working with black and white is kind of spent keeping the white clean and stopping the black from bleeding onto the white. So that's why look at that. See, that's just, I don't know whether you can see that, but that's just picked up from the workbench, which I thought was actually, it wasn't too bad. I should have given it a quick wipe down in between, before I got started with the white. That'll teach me for just blethering on and becoming distracted. The other reason that I was a wee bit quiet, certainly over the weekend, is that Enrique went off to Scotland. Now, I had lots of singing engagements, so I couldn't go with him. But he went up on Friday morning, very early, so we were up at like some silly o'clock, like 4 o'clock in the morning. And then he flew off to Inverness, and he was joining his old swim coach at Loch Ness for a swim. There's a Mexican girl, was going to be swimming two full lengths of the whole of Loch Ness, which is, as Enrique told me, 23 miles each way. I mean, it's a massive distance. Now, Enrique swam it one way in a relay team. This woman was doing it 2 ways as a solo swimmer. She didn't make the first attempt, but she's going to try it again this week. Anyway, so Enrique went up there to meet up with his old swim coach, who was leading this feat. And whilst he was up there, he only came back on Sunday, but whilst he was up there, he just went up and climbed Ben Nevis, as you do. I mean, my goodness, the man is a marvel. He really is. He's very fit. Not at all like me. I am not fit. But I'm very happy. I mean, I go out for walks every day, but there aren't many hills around here, so it's mostly on the flat. And I mean, I do try and get at least a couple of miles under my belt every day when the weather's good and not too hot. But yeah, I mean, he did, I think it was about 12 miles nearly a round trip, and over 4,000 feet of climbing. And he ended up doing the last part in darkness, and then he was back home on Sunday. So, and I was singing on Sunday morning, so I went to pick him up after that, and yes, it was lovely to see him again. So yes, it's all been quite busy, really, all things considered. Right, here's me putting his little bib on, and again, just trying to get rid of all these little, oh no, I'm going to have to patch that, because it's gone down to more of, do you see that little, let's see, I don't know whether you can see that or not, there's a little black spot, which is, yes, just needs a little bit of patching. So it happens occasionally if you scrape too far to get rid of the flob. We know all about the flob now, don't we? So I'm just going to patch that with a little knobbin, a little cutout circle, and there, it's a bit like patching basically. So let's have a look. I'll just blend that in best we can. And because it's warm, there's no issue with the blending. There we go. That's pretty much all of it gone. Now, there we go. Right. This is where it gets slightly tedious. Oh, and you can still see the little patch there. Right, I'll do something about that. In fact, what I will do, because sometimes you do have to improvise a bit, I'm actually going to cut out another tummy for him and put it on top, and that'll make him a bit fatter as well, which is no bad thing at all. No bad thing at all. So yes, I am just patting the edges because that usually just frays a little bit. And then it's just a question of matching up as best I can with a bit of overlap. So that's bringing his tummy to cover the existing tummy. This doesn't happen very often, but at least there's a way round it if it does happen, which makes it neater. And that's one of the things which I'm very keen on doing, is making sure that it is as neat and as tidy and as clean as possible. Right. So finally, there we go. We have his tummy on. Right. Now, need to make his beak, and I have preconditioned this orange clay. So I am just going to roll it out onto the second thickness on my trusty past machine. And this orange will be for both the beak and for the feet. And And the feet, I just use a little heart-shaped cutter, which is very well oranged. You can probably see that. That's what I use for penguin feet. Now, I've started doing something a little different for duck feet, but I'm sure you will have seen them. They're actually more like kiwi feet. So I've been doing those ones in a slightly different way too. It's the cutters are a great way of making sure that the shapes are even and uniform thickness as well, but there's always some patting and preening and shaping of them to do once I've actually started off doing the once I've actually cut out the shape, then there's working out to be done after that. So what I'm going to do with the beak is just, remind me, I'm sure I have actually made I need to just a smidgen more clay actually. I think I have made a penguin on, in a Brew and a Blether, have I? Have I? Maybe I haven't, maybe I'm just going a bit nuts, I don't know. Right, anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use my fingers to shape the penguin beak. So it's just, I don't know whether you probably can't see that terribly clearly, but just by pinching my 4 fingers, the fingertips of both hands together, it's kind of made an instant penguin beak shape. So it's quite good. This is how I make the duck beaks as well. But penguin beaks are a little pointier and a little shallower than duck beaks. And the duck beaks are much taller at the front and more rounded at the bill, the tip of the bill. I mean, obviously I'm not going for, excuse me, complete realism here, but, you know, they've got to at least have the main characteristics. Now, I'm just going to place that on the penguin, on the face, but not join it so far, and I'm just going to mark where the eyes go. So I've already kind of pushed in the eye sockets, and these can go quite low down on either side. There we go. That's good. Having the beak in place, which I'll take out for when I'm putting in the eyes itself, because otherwise it would potentially deform the beak, and we don't want that. So just doing my usual trick of finding 2 matching beads. I've just ordered another 40 strands of these. I've never counted how many beads are actually on one strand, but quite a few I would imagine. But they measure between 2.5 and 2.7, 2.8 millimeters in diameter. You can't buy that size. I've had to sort of source them, direct from China actually. And I've been using the same company for the last, ever since I've started using these glass beads, which is pretty much from the beginning. When I started making the larger creatures, when I say larger, I mean things like the penguins and the guinea pigs and the bunnies, etc. Mouse, and actually now the mice do take this size of bead as well, but because they all come in, they are all slightly different sizes, then I use the smaller beads for the mice and the larger beads for penguins, etc. And the sugar mice use 2mm beads, and the tiny mice, now these are the ones which either perch on top of Tabitha's wonderful toadstools, or her stars, or Rachel's wooden trees, they take either 1 or 2mm beads. The 1mm beads are fun, I have to say. So I've no idea. Can anybody tell me actually? I can't see any comments if there have been comments, but you might all just be so transfixed by what I'm saying, or maybe I can't see them at all because I've got my screen on landscape rather than portrait. Excuse me. Must have a wee sip of tea. I actually have a cup of tea. For once, I don't normally have one these days, but I deliberately made myself a lovely cup of tea. so that it could be officially a brew and a blether. Right, that's me just pushing the beads in, and I'm also keeping an eye on his orientation so that he's not looking back too far. Now, you'll know if you've got a creature or two of mine, then you'll know that they all really work best when you look at them from above. They're kind of all looking up a bit. They're looking up towards you. But you don't want to have them looking back too far, that they're kind of craning their neck. So I keep an eye on that as I'm making them. Right. Now, I will put his beak on last. I'm going to do his feet now, his little happy feet. And then this is just kind of cutting at an angle. And this I'm cutting obliquely, and I'll do the same on the other side, but going the other way, so that they sit. Oh, yeah, I nearly scrunched up the beak. How dreadful is that? So this is so that they can not curve around the body, but they sit better around the body at the bottom. I'll give them a bit of a curving when they're on anyway. So, right, okay, got some comments now. You're just transfixed, Lorna, thank you. Oh well, as long as I'm not boring you, or as long as you're actually still there anyway. This is good to know. Right, so that's one little penguin foot in, and the other one. And it's just making sure that they're kind of equidistant. Sometimes I'll have them further round, particularly if they're in a pose, but this is just going to be sort of a standing penguin facing forward. But I need to decide what he's going to do with his flippers. I suspect, or his wings I should say. Are they wings or flippers? I don't know, because they do swim with them. They're amazing swimmers, really. Penguins are just wonderful. But no, are they flippers? They might be. Anyway, they're not like bird wings, obviously. Well, they are, but they don't. Right, okay. Shall I just be quiet now and make a penguin? That's probably the best thing to do. Right, okay. So I'll put his beak on now. Now, the reason I'm doing penguin as opposed to any other creature tonight, I think, is, okay, so I've done what? I've done bunnies with flower hats, ducks, ducklings, and an otter, I think, and the bear I kind of did with a Rose, my little posh bear, who I really like, and I'm looking forward to making more little posh bears. That's going to be so much fun, going off to see the Queen at Buckingham Palace. Right, so this is, see, look, they are so cheeky. The penguins are just so cheeky. But before I lose my train of thought with that, the reason that I'm doing a penguin is because they have no ears, or no visible ears, no sticky up ears. I presume that they do have ears so that they can hear, but they are tucked in out of sight, so that makes it easier to make a little a flower hat for him. So this is me just going to give him his smile. And I discovered how to do this almost as soon as penguins were being made. So it's just a tiny little mark with a needle. That's it. That's all that's needed. And then it looks as though he's smiling at the side. Right, so let me hold him up. Do you see that? He's a happy penguin. It just makes them look really cheeky and just full of fun. They really are good. Right, we'll let Mr. Penguin we'll give him a clean up there first of all. But right, the flower. Now, so I use a cutter for the flowers, but then I shape it with this. This, I don't know whether I ever showed you this, but I made this from silicone mold. It's like a two-part mold, quick drying mold making thing. You mix it together and then you put it into whatever mold shape you want. It dries in about 5 minutes and then it's absolutely solid. No, it's really good. I made this last year before when I was doing the chicks, the Easter chicks. and they were hatching, and this was a really good base for making the eggshells that they were coming out of. And as I've discovered, they're really good for making flower shapes as well. Now, this is quite, this is a Sculpey Primo, I think, or just a Sculpey clay. It feels a bit more plastic than the Fimo Professional, but we'll use this anyway. Now, shape of size of hat for him. This is one which I sort of started. That's going to be too big for him. So I'll give him a medium-sized hat. This is just a daisy cutter. And I will put it onto... I just rolled that out flat. Okay, and then cutting out the flower. Now I rub it very hard against the glass as well, and that basically means that it's a clean cut, or cleanish anyway, and because it's a plunger I can just lift it out, and there you go. It's a pretty neat finish basically. So what I need to do, gosh, it is quite sticky in here. So it would be great if that was just the hat and it would be dead easy to do, but no, it's never that easy, is it? Never that easy. So what I need to do now, because I've made this quite thick, I am now going to squeeze each of the petals. So this is pretty much what I do for all of the flowers that get put into little hats for the creatures. I mean, it's all quite fun. So I'm just thinning down the petals, which actually makes the shape a little wider as well. And I'm not touching the centre because that needs to come up into a peak. And see what I mean about it? Just draping and shaping really well as a flower shape. And this is where I'm starting to sort of work it so that the petals come more together. And I'm also just slightly pulling it up in the centre, and that helps blend the flower petals together too, rather than having them completely separate. And they will ultimately be sort of splayed out, I should say. Right, so that's a good start. And then I take some pre-mixed clay, which I have made with leaf green as a base, and then just white just to lighten it up a little bit, soften it down a bit. So, right, I'm going to put this on a much thinner basis. This is to make the green, what do you call that thing? Is it a petal cup? You know, the green bit which forms at the base of flower buds. I don't know, I can't remember what they're called, but another cutter. And this is like a little dewdrop, I think. Little oval. It's not oval. What's it? What is it? What? That's a drop. Let's call it a water drop. So I need to cut out 8 of these. There we go. And then it's a question of just putting them at the edge in between the petal joins. Okay, so I'm going to go around and join, just add one of these on each of the joins of the petals, and it'll start building up the central bit as well. I'm sure there are different ways of doing it. Oh, and Dawn has joined us. Sorry, I've not really been catching up on too many of the comments, but by all accounts, I think there aren't that many tonight, which is fine. It just is what it is. But lovely to have you here, Dawn. Lorna is a stamen. The stamen's the inside part. That's like the, you know, like on the black bit on a poppy, the centre. That's the stamen's the sort of the middle bit, as far as I know. But I'm entirely happy to be proved wrong once Glenn has stopped playing Pokemon. Right, so last one going on now. And I'm just trying to make sure, I mean, they are wider, so they need to be sort of now smoothed in. without distorting too much. So now I'm pressing them in to flatten them against the top, and now I am pinching them together without distorting the bottom shapes too much. So you can see that I've been having fun making these flowers. But do you know what? Do you remember that little the little mouse smelling the rose that I made? And he went up for auction, and I loved him. He was so sweet. This is going to be a really good technique for making more of the flowers. So you can expect to see more mice, more creatures smelling flowers. That's just the way it's going to be. Right, so now I am making this very, very thin, just by gently pressing it evenly. Because if you imagine, I mean, that would be probably the thickness of a stem of a flower. It's obviously not very sturdy, but it doesn't need to be, because it's going to be perched upside down on a penguin head. You see it's distorted a little bit, but that's okay. Right, and now I'm going to just gently tease that off. This is the other good thing, because it's silicone rubber, it doesn't stick. It's pretty good. And now I'm just going to use my ball shaper just to pull it down a little bit more and form more of the inside of the flower, so it's not too flat. So you see, it takes almost as long to make the flower hat as it does to make the penguin, for goodness sake. Right, now it is quite hot and this is quite sticky clay, but that's not too bad. Right, and this is where it's a bit of a one job try, because the clay will stick on. And the idea is that I need to still preserve that kind of domed shape so that it doesn't go like a flat hat. That's really cute, actually. Right. And now what I do with the stem, because you can't really go around like that, cute though it is, but it's not very practical. So to make it look more like a proper flower, then I actually use scissors and just trim it as you would with a normal flower. And then that sort of gives it a sort of a cut edge as well, which I can just sort of tease out a little bit and flop over a bit. So there's the penguin with the little hat. This is really cute. And I think because penguins are, you know, they can't leave anything alone, so I have a feeling that he's going to be reaching up and just making sure that it's not getting in his eyes. And I'm just teasing out the petals a little bit more. It can afford to be, or they can afford to be, a little longer now. But it's got to be all done evenly so that it doesn't look odd. And also this helps remove any fingerprints that I may have inadvertently left on. So yeah, he's a sweetheart. Yeah, I need to decide. I haven't decided whether I'm going to do an event this month yet. The auctions for the August, there are 3 August scenes for the Squeak Show scenes. They start next week, Wednesday to the Sunday. So I may just have a week of putting, or like a couple of weeks of just putting in some random creatures into the shop. If you have been on my Quernus page this evening, just before I started, before I just started the video, I posted some pictures of piglings that I have just revisited as a result of a commission request, and then I decided to make a few more because why not? It's good fun. And they are my first ever creature that I ever made. Calyx, Lorna's saying, is that for the outside bit? Could be, sounds right. Could be. Quite happy to go with Calyx. Yep, that works for me. But yeah, so I may just end up putting wee creatures in my shop randomly and not tell you about it, so that you just have to go and find any creature that's meant for you, because they always know. So keep an eye on my shop, and yeah, if there's, some may appear, and if you find one, then it's meant to be, basically, as 'twas ever thus. Right, so now I'm just shaping the bottom of the wing so that it actually comes up from his side, and then it's just a question of positioning that so that he can then hold up one of the petals. The penguins do really have to be doing things, to be honest. I mean, I know that the bunnies are just sort of sitting with their paws in front of them, but no, penguins, they prefer to do something else. So this one wants to make sure that the hat fits him okay. So that's just perfect. And I'm just making sure that the wings are nicely flush with his body. And there we go. So, oh, right, and we're over time as well. That's 22. But hey, what do you think of little penguin with flower hat? I'm rather fond of him, I have to say. He's a bit funny. Or maybe it's a she. I don't know. Need to decide what that is. I haven't signed them yet, actually, and this is good because I never really get a chance to sign them to show you what I do, because normally I finish them off after, the next day or whatever. But this is my QC cane. Where's the camera? Let's see if you can see that. I don't know whether you can or not. Maybe not. Maybe it's not picking it up. No, it's not. You'll know anyway that there's a Q and a C interlocked monogram, and I made this years and years ago, but it lasts for ages because I'm reducing it down to that size, and just cutting a very thin slice off at the edge, so it's like a stick of rock. It's the same pattern that runs all the way through it, and this is how I sign all my work, where they have a bottom at any rate. So that just sits like that and then gets squished in, and that's it, permanently signed. Right, and Lorna, sorry, this is the disadvantage of having my screen on landscape instead of portrait is I can only read like sort of one comment at a time, and if it's gone, it's gone. So terribly sorry. So thank you very much for the botany lesson from Lorna. Thank you very much for joining me, and yes, and meeting this little flower hat penguin who will probably be popping up in my shop at some point tomorrow, possibly with some piglings. I'll give his tummy more of a clean up because it's white on black and pink, just to add to the whole, the mass of colours that there are. But thank you very much for joining me, and well, have a lovely evening, everybody. I will speak to you soon. All right, bye-bye.